Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 5-game Major League Baseball slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Also, make sure to check out the other videos. I got some college football today. I'll put up an NFL video later today as well. If there's any other sport you potentially want me to cover this week, feel free to drop a comment below. Thank you guys to the supporters and everything like that. So let's go ahead and get in the slate here. We're going to start with Evoli. Now, he had a rough go in his first game back versus Houston. He's had some ups and downs throughout the season. He's only had one game over 20 fantasy points in the last 6 games he started. It is a little bit concerning that he may not throw a ton of innings today, but we'll have to wait and see about what they say. With that said, he is the most expensive pitcher on the slate, and he did have a 45 fantasy point game a couple months ago against Oakland, so that does give him some upside. He's absolutely dominated them with 12 strikeouts and only gave up 3 hits. He's capable of that, and he's a very good pitcher. So I think he's got some upside in this matchup, though he is the most expensive guy, as I said, and he has had some rough edges recently. As for Webb for San Francisco, he's in a great situation here, but similar to Eovaldi, he's only had one 20 fantasy point game in the past 6. His K rate has been inconsistent too, but he's also had a 40 fantasy point game versus Colorado his last time that he pitched against them. So in both cases, they both have had some good games. Now he did have a game at Colorado that he didn't do quite as well as against, but he's still capable of a big game here, and so he is viable on the slate, especially being a small slate. Then we'll look at Lugo for San Diego. Now he's for a top price pitcher. He's in the worst situation against Houston, but he also has been the most consistent lately. He's only given up more than 2 earned runs once in his last 9 starts, and he's had 6 20 fantasy point games in that stretch. He's high risk, high reward, obviously going up against Houston. I do like some Houston bats today. A 15 to 25 fantasy point game is definitely in play here, as he's been in that zone for a while. Then we'll look at Golito for Cleveland. Now this is his second game with the Guardians, so we'll have to wait and see how he's going to continue to do. He's been streaky throughout the year, but in his first game with Cleveland, he did really awful. But he just left the Angels because he was on their team for a couple games, so it looks like he's going to have some ups and downs when he's here in Cleveland. That said, he definitely has some potential, though. Golita's K rate does give him some potential here. His floor is very rough though, and he's on his third team of the season. His upside is around 25 fantasy points. Let's go and get into our catchers, and we're going to start here with Mr. Garver, who is a core play for me. I think he's going to hit a home run today, and that's why I'm utilizing him. He's hit the ball very well recently with a 303 average and 4 home runs over his last 10 games, hitting the ball pretty solid, scoring fantasy points decently, and he's very fairly priced. But if you want a contrarian option from him, his teammate Jonah Heim is in play. He's been not quite as consistent, and he doesn't have as much home run upside, but he's a good contrarian option, as he's still hitting the ball decently well and has some fantasy point potential at a cheaper price as well. Then we'll look at Sean Murphy for Atlanta. Now, Atlanta is obviously a stackable team every time out, though he has been somewhat inconsistent recently. He's been a little bit slumpy. That said, he is capable of a big game, and he did take the game off sorry, he didn't take the game off yesterday, but oh yeah, he did actually. Sorry. And in his last few games, he was starting to get some hits again and scoring some runs. So he is very capable. He's not striking out much. He's just got to get the hits in the right place to really get going again. Moving into first base here, we'll start with Matt Olson. Now he's one of my favorite plays on the slate. He was very close to being a core play. His price just makes him hard to roster, but he's had a bunch of multi-hit games recently. He had 4 home runs in 4 games, but he didn't get one yesterday. But he still managed 14 fantasy points. He definitely doesn't need a home run to pay off, but it definitely benefits him quite a bit. Lamont Wade Jr. for San Francisco also in play. Now he's been very streaky recently. He's been okay on the season though. He doesn't play all the time, but he does play most games, and he's been pretty solid against Colorado in his 6 games he's played against them, averaging 7 fantasy points a game. At his price point, we can get a 10 fantasy point game and be happy, and he should have that opportunity today. And then we'll look at Nathaniel Lowe for Texas. Texas is also a team I would really like to stack today. He's been a little bit streaky throughout the season, but he does draw good metrics here, and I typically like him when he jumps to the top of the charts for me, especially in smaller slates. He gives some upside, and he's nice. He's nicely priced today as well. Maybe in the second base, Marcus Semien for Texas is in play. Now he's been up and down throughout the year, but he does draw home run metrics today, and he's had a couple really good. He's had 3 straight multi-hit games, and that gives him some potential today, though he is a little bit expensive. Jose Altuve is also in play for Houston. Now he's been very good recently. He's had 6 home runs in his last 10 games. He had a couple multi-home run games in the middle of last week, so he definitely draws some good potential here, though he has been robust a little bit as he's been somewhat inconsistent. He does draw some stolen base potential as well, but he is high risk, high reward today at his price. Then we'll look at Jimenez for Cleveland. Now, Cleveland is interesting today. They have a couple of bats that I do like, but they're not huge home run hitters most of the time. But he is capable of a decent game, and he has nice upside. I think he has some good stolen base potential today, and that gives him some utility here as a $4,000 priced player. And then Brendan Drury for the Angels. He's kind of a sneaky play today. He's been somewhat inconsistent, but he's getting different, doubles and singles and triples and home runs, and so he is capable of a good game here. He hasn't been striking out very much lately either, but he does have tendency to have zero score games, but he does have home run upside on the slate. Jose Ramirez is in play for Cleveland as well. Now, he has been streaky throughout the year, and he's been a little bit slumpy recently, but he does draw home run potential, and he's had a few good games this week, so I think he's capable. He also has a little bit of stolen base upside, though I don't think he's going to get one today. Brian Hayes for Pittsburgh also in play for versus Atlanta. He's a little bit cheaper here. He's hit the ball very well with 3 home runs over his last 10. He hasn't been a huge home run threat most of the season, but he is capable of a good game, and he is getting some multi-hit games in this stretch. He draws good metrics, and his price point is pretty fair, just slightly expensive. If Austin Riley was to play today, he would potentially be in play. He's hit the ball very well throughout the season, and he's really hitting the ball better recently. He has good home run mechanics and has good upside. He's also just destroyed Pittsburgh in the 4 games he's played against them. Even without home runs, he's just getting a lot of hits. So if he does play today, he'll be in play, but he is high risk, high reward at his price. Maybe in the shortstop, we'll look at Seager for Texas. Now, Seager has been very good throughout the season, but he's been a little bit slumpy recently, but he's getting more home runs. He's had 5 in the last 10, and he does draw good metrics, but he's been striking out a little bit more, which is a little bit of a concern, but he is a great hitter, and so he's capable of a good game here. Then we'll look at Brandon Crawford for San Francisco. Now, he's a Hail Mary play, but he's minimum priced. He hasn't been hitting all that well recently, but he is capable of decent games occasionally. And at this price, he doesn't need a huge scoring game. If he can get 1 or 2 hits and an RBI or so, he's going to pay off here. So I think he's a viable option here. And honestly, this position is very rough. Maybe in the outfielders, we'll look at Acuna first. I mean, what else do you say? He's had 6 home runs the last 10 games, 2 stolen bases. He's got a little bit of everything going. He's had 3 home runs the last 2 games. He had a home run yesterday. The Braves are rolling, and he's one of the reasons. He's got big time upside. Hard to ignore his how good he's playing. Juan Soto also in play for San Diego. Now, he's been somewhat inconsistent recently, but it looks like San Diego's playing pretty well right now. They've had some good scoring games the last few, and he does draw some home run mechanics upside here, and he's capable of that. I do like his potential today as a good hitter. Then we'll look at Alvarez for Houston. Now, he's kind of a risky play today because I do like Lugo, but he's hitting 441 over the last 10 games. Hard to ignore that with his home run potential and just good hitting skills, and he's capable of a big game even if he doesn't hit a home run. Jock Peterson is in play for San Francisco. He's kind of high risk, high reward, but he hasn't hit a ton of home runs this season, but he is capable of them. He also just has good hitting mechanics and has several multi-hit games over the last few games. Though do keep in mind that he does strike out sometimes, and so that is a concern. But he is capable of a good game here on this particular slate. And Michael Brantley also in play for Houston. He's hit the ball pretty well so far since he's started the season. The last few games, he is getting ramped up, and he's had 2 home runs in his first 6 games, so he's very capable of a nice home run here. I like his potential and upside, and if he can get a multi-hit game, that would definitely pay off a lot here. He was very close to being a core play. Brian Reynolds also in play for Pittsburgh. He does draw good metrics today, though he's kind of been robust. I think Atlanta's kind of pitcher is going to be somewhat streaky today, so I imagine Pittsburgh will get some runs scored, and he's probably one of the guys that's going to have some good potential to do so. Then Ramon Laureano for Cleveland is kind of a Hail Mary play today. He does draw some interesting potential. He's been pretty good the last couple of games, getting some hits. He had a couple multi-hit games recently as well, and he has been scoring some fantasy points, which is nice at this price point. And then Robbie Grossman, who is a core play for me, very decent home run hitter sometimes. He just has to have the right situation, and this one looks like one of those. Though he is high-risk Hail Mary type option, he's been solid against Oakland. In 9 games, he's averaged 12 fantasy points a game. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.